Check out these songs and see if you can spot what they all have in common. What ties these all together is that use of dissonance in the songwriting. In the song Old Friend, for example, the second note of the bass line is a C, which is outside of the key of A major, which the chorus is played in. Take a listen again and notice how this really draws your attention in, because it's subverting what you'd naturally expect to hear during this walking bass line. Dissonance comes in many forms in music, and specifically when talking about punk, it can be heard all over its many subgenres. Creating dissonance doesn't mean you always have to reach outside of the key you're playing in either. It's more about finding the bad notes that introduce tension within the harmony. A few starting points you can try is to incorporate a minor second, 1/2 step apart, a major seventh, 11 half steps apart, or a tritone, 6 half steps apart, into your chords or riffs. For example, if you were playing a C power chord, dropping the higher C octave note down to a B will introduce dissonance. You can also experiment with adding chromatic notes too. This is where you either ascend or descend in half steps, which may sound weird on paper, but it can actually sound pretty unique depending on how you use it. For instance, in the song One Strum that I made with my band, I took this idea of chromaticism to create an 8-chord ascending then descending progression for the verse. On its own, it can sound a little off-kilter, but when played alongside the vocal melody, it helps tie this very dissonant-sounding progression together.
I'm waking up and shutting down from looking at my bank account. This daily grind I'm doing fine. God damn, it's such a waste of time.
And this can be done in more subtle ways too, like using chromatic passing notes to add a little more flavour to simple chord progressions. This works particularly well on bass, which is a technique you'll hear players like Matt Freeman use all the time. When I was working with the band Lad TV, I used the same idea to create a sort of pop-punk doo-wop sound. Just by adding these single chromatic notes in between the chord changes, it gives the music a totally different feeling than if you were to just stick to the root notes the entire time. If you watched my recent video on 5 different ways to make a riff, then you will have heard me talk about using droning notes throughout a progression. So as an additional step to that idea, you can try finding some less stable notes to enhance these drones that will add that characteristic sad dissonant sound to your more poppy and upbeat progressions. Underneath this riff I added an octave, which I originally planned to use as a D note throughout, but then I decided to drop the higher note down 1/2 step to the major 7th, which adds this unique tension to the rest of this intro that wasn't present before. Knowing the right or wrong notes to play is just one step. Learning how professional bands track and then arrange their guitars will take your recordings to a whole new level, which you can learn about in this video next.